Time for another backlapping video. G'day and welcome back to Rusty Inspirations. Last week I used the Model 45 to do a height reset on both the back and front lawns. Now as you could imagine, it has dulled off the reel and bed knife. So today we are going to do a backlap on this machine and we'll go over my personal views on backlapping and I'll show you the tools that I use to get the job done. Alright, so first up I've got my backlapping machine that I've converted from an old drill press. Not essential, but it definitely makes the job a little bit easier. Alternatively, you could use a power drill or a battery drill. I've got this for another job which you will see shortly. Next up we've got our backlapping paste. This is a 120 grit and it's come from turfmate.com. Now I have tipped the contents from this into this bucket because I find when you try to mix it up in the original bucket, as you can imagine, it's fairly full and find you make a mess. So just poke that in a bigger bucket. Next up, I've got my toolkit. So other than all that, everything else is in here. Got some chain lube to lube up the chains while I'm in there. Bit of spray in case you've got some stubborn nuts and bolts. Oil for oiling up the thrust pad and whatnot. Paper for checking to see if it's sharp. Testing the reel to bed knife. I've got my height of cut bar, spanners, bed knife buddy. I don't use that often, but it does come in handy. Obviously a brush to apply backlapping paste and the stirrer, which is what I use the drill for to mix up the backlapping paste. So between that and this little toolkit, I have everything I need to do a backlap, a reel to bed knife adjustment, set my height of cut accurately, and much more. So I don't know, I find this kit very convenient rather than going to the shed, going through the toolbox, grabbing everything I need. It's all here. So that's how I like to do it. So let's get into it. Alrighty, first things first, I recommend some eye protection. Now this is probably fairly low risk, but better safe than sorry. So the first thing we're gonna have to do is remove this side cover. So grab our flathead in our trusty toolkit. Alrighty, so I just set my screws in the chain cover. Now I don't have a flash restored 45, so be wary of that if you've got a nice neat one that you probably don't want to lay it down on the face. Right, so this is probably a good excuse while we're in here to check over everything, make sure there's no loose fasteners, we've got good tension, wear on our sprockets. If you feel the need, give it a degreasing, ready to oil it up. Although we won't adjust any chains now, we'll do that after we've backlapped and set the reel to bed knife, because that can impact our chain tensions as well. Another thing that's usually in my toolkit that isn't today is a rag, just something to wipe my hands on as I go. All right, not completely necessary, but sometimes getting this grass deflector out the way can make things a little bit easier and definitely easier to clean if that's what you're doing. Although for today's exercise, I'm going to take it off because it'll probably make it easier to get the camera in there and show you guys what I'm doing. Next, I'm gonna run the bed knife buddy along the bed knife to try and rejuvenate our cutting edge on there. As you can see, we've got these little plastic bits here which stop the file from hitting the cutting edge of the reel. Now, these only cut one direction. If you wanted to cut the opposite direction, say your reel is configured the other way, you'll have to pull this out and flip it around. So we start from this edge. Making sure we're holding this flat on here, on that surface onto the bottom of the bed knife. Maintaining the same angle the whole way across. Alrighty, now since we've done that, we've got a little burr on the back side, which won't matter because we'll backlap that in a second and that'll sort that out. We're done with that. Alright, from here I'm going to set up my backlapping machine. Now ideally I'd like this machine to spin a little bit slower than it does. Although I might modify it in the future, gear it down a little bit more so it does so, and therefore it'll work a little bit better once I get the supercut up and running. For now, it does the job. Now this may vary from different breeds of machines, but on a Scott Bonnar 45, if we spin it from here, we'll be spinning the reel slower than if we spin it from here. I drive my reel in reverse with the backlapping machine at this point, and if I was using a drill, I'd personally spin it from there as well, because you could put your drill in low gear and you'll have a lot more control and it'll be less wear and tear on your drill than as if you spun it from this point. Alright, so I've got the backlapper set up, we've got all the power hooked up. Now I might have jumped the gun here a little bit because I want to adjust this reel to bed knife a little bit. I notice there's contact up this end and nothing up this end. But before we do that, I recommend just pulling that off there in case this accidentally gets turned on for whatever reason while we've got our fingers in here. Alright, so again, we've got all the tools we need in our toolkit. So we're going to back this one off, probably do both sides, which is this bolt here on the height adjuster. And we're going to crack off this locking nut, which this is the new improved one. So this is a right hand thread, not a left hand thread. So we're going to do that lefty loosey. So wind that down there, not a lot, just enough to loosen this so we can then wind this to adjust it up and down. Right, as I said, we'll crack this one off. Bearing in mind that this is now a right hand thread, not a left hand thread like the originals. That's all it takes. From here, we will now turn this one anti-clockwise, which will move the reel down to the bed knife, and opposite if this is a left-hand thread. Don't worry, it gets complicated. Doesn't matter how many times you do it, it still makes you think. I think that's sounding pretty even across the board, so we probably don't need to do this now, but I'll lock that up just for argument's sake. So then we clamp that to this, then that cannot wind in and out. Next, we're going to mix up our backlapping paste. Our paint stirrer. Stir that till it's nice and consistent. We've got our clutch disengaged down so it's not trying to turn the engine over. Hook our backlapper up. So when you think it's had enough, take it over and wash all the backlap and paste off, dry it out, see how we go on with our reel to bed knife adjustment, and see if it cuts paper. Alright, so now that we've got all the backlapping paste cleaned off, for the next part of the process, we need this dry. So poke it out in the sun or grab the blower vac and blow it off. I will add that a fair bit of that contact sound we could hear before the backlap was due to the burr that we had made on the back side of this top side of this blade due to running across this with the bed knife buddy. I think this is going to need a bit of an adjust up, but we'll see how we go. Alright, so I'm thinking it's going to cut this end, but not this end. See how we go. This is before we've adjusted it after the backlap. Oh, cut a little bit there. I think I might be wrong here. Oh, we're cutting on the ends, but not. Oh, it's not too bad, is it? I think I might have been right. Good average. I reckon we could wind that up a bit and should be cutting nice. Right, so we're going to adjust this end up a little bit. Right, so again, this is a right end thread, so we're going to crack this nut off. Doesn't take much. Then we are going to loosen this to move the reel towards the bed knife. So anti-clockwise, doesn't take much, especially when we're that close. We'll check that again. Alright, so this is our first adjustment after a backlap. Ooh, we might be onto a winner here. It doesn't matter how many times you do this job, it's still satisfying. It just never wears off. Go through a whole pack of paper just testing it. Alright, so all in all, I'm pretty happy with that. That went rather well. Quick backlap and the adjustment went really smoothly. At this point, I'd like to add that it doesn't always happen like that. Adjusting your reel to bed knife can honestly be an absolute pain in the butt some days. Obviously, the more you do it, the easier it gets. But like I said, some days you'll find yourself, you adjust it, it's too far one way, too far the other way, and then you're going around in circles, and then you forget which way to turn everything, and it can be a headache. So yeah, sometimes it does take a lot of patience, but just keep trying, you will get there. All right, so we've done our backlap and our reel to bed knife adjustment. We're all happy in here. Now it is at this point that if I need to, I will adjust my chains. Now, remembering, technically we have put some more tension on here because we adjusted our reel to our bed knife, which ever so slightly has moved the reel in this direction. Now, I'm pretty happy with that. We've got another chain in here for our rear roller and another one to our clutch for our rear roller. That could probably do with a bit of tightening, so I might do that right now. All right, so if we wanted to tighten or loosen this chain, we do that via this. Loosen that off, move that in to loosen it, out to tighten it. Now to adjust these two, we need to undo this nut and this nut. Now they're both adjusted simultaneously by cracking off them nuts and moving this in that direction to tighten this one, and that direction to tighten this one. Alright, now that's a lot better. Pretty happy with that. Chain in there is pretty good. Bit hard to see, but alright, there's one last thing I like to do before I pack everything up. Alright, so I like to put my backlapper on one last time, switch him on. There goes my confetti gun. Grab my chain lube. So that sprays them up, and then we've just got to do the one on the back roller, because obviously that's not spinning unless we pull the clutch lever in. All right, so we've all but got it done, but before we go any further, I want to share with you my personal thoughts on backlapping. Now, there is a lot of different opinions on the matter, and I'm going to start by saying I don't feel that any of them are wrong. It is down to the individual, as simple as that. So we hear a lot of talk that our reel and bed knife should be ground once a year, and I do agree. But from there, we hear a lot of talk that we should only ever require reel to bed knife adjustments, and backlapping is not necessary. Now, this might be the case for some, and as much as I would love for this to work for me, in reality, it just doesn't. Therefore, backlapping plays a big part in maintaining a sharp cutting edge on my machine throughout growing season. Now, I know I shouldn't compare our domestic mowers with professional greens mowers, but greenskeepers regularly, very regularly backlap their mowers to maintain a sharp cutting edge. Now, for me personally, that is all the convincing I need. So at the end of the day, if your machine maintains a sharp cutting edge throughout the growing season without the need of a backlap, then by all means, keep doing what you're doing, absolutely. But on the other hand, if you feel that you could benefit from a backlap here and there, and I think you already know what I'm going to say, go for it. I've had absolutely no dramas, and I will definitely keep backlapping my machine. All right, last piece, poke this back on. Tools in there. Cleaned up the mixer and the brush earlier. That's it, all done. Well, there you have it. That's how I go about backlapping my machine and my thoughts on the process. As I said, there's plenty of different opinions on the matter, and none of them are wrong. It's literally down to the individual and what works for them. If you want to see how I made my little backlapping machine, go and check out that video. And yeah, I guess I'll get all this stuff packed up and call it a day. So if you like the video, please feel free to like and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next one. Cheers, legends.